Welcome back, kids. We are here again for another episode of Sit Crooked, Talk Straight. My name is Katie Myers.
And I'm Leanne Jameson.
And we're here today to talk about, we talk about personality stuff and like leadership stuff and what drives us and our purpose and our passion and our mission. Today, like the topic of ego-driven leadership came up actually a long time ago.
Yes. I can't even, I think it was like we were talking about, the upcoming polls and the everything
all
that's
the political
happening
stuff
with voting and exactly. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like there's so much ego in all arenas. Let's just like say this, like it's out there. We have it. We have egos. We all have egos. But what happens when our ego actually is leading the way, right?
And leadership is such a hard thing anyway. I mean, I can remember different leadership roles where I felt like, imposter syndrome. I felt like a fucking fish out of water. It was just so uncomfortable at times. And I think partly one is because I didn't have a lot of role models to show me like what like good, healthy leadership looked like. And so I was kind of like winging it. But then also I did feel like I had a deeper understanding of like long-term vision and the greater good and just making hard decisions that not everyone's going to understand. And then not being liked, right? Like that was one of the biggest things. Like I just had no idea in leadership how much I would be disliked.
Right, we go in with like rose-colored glasses, and it's and I want to challenge something even because like with this, it's like you said that you were flying by the seat of your pants, which yes, I think we all do. It's like I always think about parenthood. I was actually thinking about this morning where I was just like, God, I'm like, there's so many books out there, but I mean, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I was just thinking about like calling admissions for my, anyways, with that. But so there's that part of it, which truly is, it's like, we're all just out here doing the best that we can. And I want to say with you, and I know this was my experience too, is that there was something deep within us, right? That knew that like when we were looking at these role models and we were being told from our immediate role models, right? Or even bigger role models, because again, we're all human. That's why I said, like, we're all in this, we all have ego, but it's important to recognize when it's leading and when, you want your heart to lead. But anyways, it's, we all knew, like, we knew that there was something not in alignment of like, okay, I'm being told to lead like this, but that just does not feel right or good or in alignment, right, with what I know to be my truth, right?
Which is so interesting, like thinking about what sparked this, because I now like recall listening to a podcast. Jonathan and I were driving somewhere, long distance podcast came on, and it was about politics. And so I am going to talk a little bit about, right, like ego is nonpartisan. Ego is bipartisan. Like ego, it affects, there has to be a certain amount of ego strength, but also ego, I don't know what the other word would be. There has to be some in order to survive in that arena, in the political arena, and in many leadership arenas.
Absolutely.
And one of the examples that came up about ego-driven leadership was, and I was so surprised because I have always, especially with like Supreme Court stuff and like decision making and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the example was Ruth not stepping down from her position while there was a Democrat in office when Barack Obama was president. And the fact that she didn't step down, she died when a Republican was in office, which meant that a Republican replaced her with a conservative person, and it changed the trajectory of Roe versus Wade. And so much more, right? Like that was just the little example, and it's not a little example, but that was just one of the examples of like the Supreme Court justice and like fucking can stay on there until they die. Like, why are we allowing these people to stay on in this? Like, there should be terms of service. Anyway, I digress. When it was called out of like RBG was totally ego driven in that decision to not sit down. And Jonathan, my husband, I had this conversation about like, why didn't she realize? People tried to talk to her, apparently. Obama asked her for the greater good. Down. And so like when I looked up the definition of like ego driven leadership is when a leader is more focused on their own needs and success rather than the success of their team and organization. And that can lead to negative outcomes for the leader, their team, and the organization. And I just think about like, wow, how different things would potentially be today. And I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I do have a crystal ball, but I don't use it like that. I don't know what would have happened other than my guess is we would have a very different trajectory in our Supreme Court today because we now have more conservatives than liberals on that grand decision making. I mean, there's so many decisions that come from that. So it's the trickle down that is like massive. There's a trickle down that's like maybe not so massive, but when we lead from a place of ego, when it's more important that like we stay looking shiny and good and I can do it and capable, because that was Jonathan's thing. He was like, I bet she thought she was totally capable of like staying alive. I don't know. I just
capable of her decision making and staying alive and being things having, but regardless, it was her choosing status or thinking that she is the best fit when other people around her maybe trusted, maybe not, maybe that was the issue, I don't know. But still, it's like this old way of thinking that like with RBG, you're just like, damn, there was so much good, again, where this is just one moment in her life, she did so much. And this was a moment that also changed, right? And sort of reversed. And I mean, I'm a big believer of like, maybe things have to be the way that they are and whatever it is, right? But still, it's just like, damn, Ruth.
Well, and I still hold her in such high esteem and high regard. Like, I still think she is she was just amazing in so many ways. And she was human. She was human down to the very end.
And absolutely. And this is where we are, even when we look at this is for women, by women who are looking for change. I think it's really important to recognize, and I love that you brought up Ruth, because she is so highly regarded. She did so much for women's rights and advocacy and awareness, and like so powerful. And this was that moment where it was possible for her to step down. And again, ego. We can all be driven by ego if we're not aware of it, and what impact that has, right? And I'm gonna bring it back to even just like in corporations that so many women are in, because that's what, when I was talking to Katie and I chit chat before we go on, she's like, isn't there anything lighter? I'm like, I don't know. This just keeps on coming up because I know my sister's going through, and my clients are going through this, and you see it over and over and over. And these women, I talk to hundreds of women, thousands of women, like, every year that, this is the story that they're living with, of just so much toxicity in corporations, and they wonder why we don't want to work for them. And why, small businesses are flourishing and booming, and all this, like, it's just going down, right? And it needs to, it has to change. Something has to change. And I'm not saying, and what we often do is swing so far to the other side, and then we have to watch the pendulum come back and forth, where, I'm a huge proponent for harmonization of the masculine and the feminine, and bringing those together. But when we are driven from ego, again, I don't think it has to be masculine or feminine. It's part of us that, like you were saying, we do need our ego to feel solid in who we are. And when we allow it to drive us, it's all about like self-serving. And that on a team, in organizations, in, higher, what do I want to say? Like CEOs and all, in the hierarchy of CEOs, I guess, like, what does that look like, right? Like, how does that trickle down of just like with the decision makings that's top down, right? And team dynamics is like, I just want to point out a couple things, because some people might be like, I don't understand. Am I being led from ego? Right? It was like sort of just like when we were newer in the arena of just like, wait, I just know something's off. Like, something doesn't feel right. And right. So it's sort of like looking at some of the symptoms, some of the things that will bring awareness to this, is that, again, the top down control is the decision making. As we make the decisions, you just tell what needs to happen, right? There's really no empowerment there. And oftentimes with this, leaders are really afraid to make decisions. And it's really fucked up, because I remember like, they're just like, make the decision. I remember, being told, just, you go ahead, make the decision. So I would, and then they would come back and be like, that was the wrong decision. And they would like do, oh my gosh, like so many things where I was like, what the fuck? Like, are you serious?
You can never
right?
win. Here's my synopsis on leadership. You're fucked. You can never win. I'm being a little facetious, but like that example right there is like, that brings me right back to Talbot, CEO, of like, you will never make everyone happy. You will always feel like you are screwing up or disappointing someone. You are screwed no matter what decision you make. And good fucking luck, because when the final decision comes to you, good fucking luck. Like, I just had like a visceral reaction to that. Like,
I know you did, right? We're getting thrown right back to where we were. Well, and I think this is really important to bring up too, because as that we were saying, it's like, this is not just, nobody has immunity to this. So if you're in that leadership position and you find yourself doing some of this, just check yourself again, right? I know that we have it, like we do. Okay, so I was gonna say there's no judgment, but I'm like, there's a lot of judgment. I'm gonna say that right now, because what happens is the toxicity, right? And there's competition. Like this, it's everything that my whole soul and my purpose and my mission and my business goes against. It's collaboration, it's connection. With the ego driven, it's competition, and you're rooting against each other, and you're like the dog eat dog world. I was actually watching oh my gosh, what's his name? So I was watching this, it was like $1 Million Real Estate or something like that. Anyways, New York City. He wrote the book Big Money, which I do love the book. I'm looking for it. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Anyways, it's somewhere in there. I literally, I'm like, oh, this will be really cool. Like, I really liked his book and stuff. Big Money, Big Something. Oh, now I'm gonna get so frustrated.
Big Money is by Napoleon Hill.
Nope. That's not it. So I will find it. Why can't I find it? Did they throw it out because I was so angry? Anyways, I'm gonna have to.
Possibly.
I'm gonna have to look for it. I'll put it in there. Well, I'll keep on talking and I'll look for it. So, anyways, I was so disgusted by the way he was pitting people against each other, and knowing that people are watching this and thinking like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I'm like, no, that can't be it. Big Money Energy by Ryan Serhant. That's what it is. Yeah. And again, he was great. And the book was great. It was. I was just like, I don't know if I want to like grind like that, but like there were parts of it that were just like, I couldn't put it down. It was a great book. But anyways, the epitome of ego driven. I was so disappointed and heartbroken. But it was just like, so it's this competition rather than collaboration. There's a blame, right? The culture. Now I'm looking at like the company culture that comes along with it, is like, there's blaming, there's finger pointing, there's all of these. oh gosh, like instead of taking responsibility, right? I remember when I was in my management
Mhm.
position being told, I knew that we said something wrong. I knew that we did something wrong, and it impacted the clients, right? And I was told, I was like, I went in and I did my thing and I was like, listen, of course, I'm going to take some responsibility. I'm not taking all of it. I will take some responsibility, the responsibility that's ours. And I remember going back to my boss, and he looked at me, he was like, we never admit when we're wrong. I was like, I do not subscribe to that.
Mm.
I don't do that. So and the team dynamics is like because all of this is going on, right? There's micromanagement, there's like this inability to empower, and there's no
Oh
trust,
yeah.
right? There's no trust and there's lack of communication. So you have no fucking clue what's
Yeah.
happening. So yes, that is all ego driven. So if you're sitting
Mhm.
here listening and you feel this in your core and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been feeling within my company. It's because it's an ego driven, like your leader. And again, I don't want to blame, or I do want to sort of point to the problem, but not point fingers, because again, being
Mhm.
in it, how we were in it, we're just doing the best we can. We're sort of just, fumbling
Mhm.
now, you know, gratefully, and I'm so happy that like things are slowly
Yeah.
shifting, right? There are more leaders that are coming from service, from heart, from compassion, from like collaboration and connection. But we still have a
We
long
do.
ways to go. So if you're feeling this, know that you're not
Mhm.
alone, because I've spoken to so many women who are still in this. And I'm sure men too, right? But I just talk to women and by choice. And and if you are one of those leaders that's like, fuck, this is what I'm doing. Like there's a different way to lead. And
Yes.
we're actually going to talk about that in
Yes.
our next
Yes.
episode. So yeah. So okay, I just went on a huge rant. Go for it,
No,
Katie.
I love it. It's so applicable, and because you are talking with women every single day, and like and you've had these experiences, they're so apropos in like bringing the point home, right? Like this exists. There's often I see it as like a spectrum. There's on one
Mhm.
end is like the like uber toxic, oh my gosh, I wouldn't last even a day in that environment. Like I quit, get me out. I
That was Ryan Seher. That was yeah.
And then there's the other end of the spectrum that like probably still has some levels of or has some levels of ego driven, but maybe it's more manageable. And so for I want to talk to like two different ways of for leaders who are potentially in that position, for you to get curious about where are you on that spectrum, and can you leave from um, less of your ego and more from your heart. And like Leanne said, we're going to talk about that in our next episode. Um, but if you are working in an environment where the leadership, where you don't have a lot of say, but you're just, impacted by the leadership around you, you're going to have to decide either you're going to be in a place of acceptance of, okay, this is how it is. I can manage. It's manageable. I can get through it. Or I'm going to be a change agent. I'm going to push back. I'm going to challenge. I'm going to um, try to be that positive influence, or do like I did and quit.
Well, I was thinking too. I just had the thought of, I wonder if that's, because you said like I wasn't liked by money. I wonder if it's because you were pushing back in your own way, like you were challenging it. You were like,
Yeah,
I just remember, yeah, right.
yeah,
And that's when we're not meant to be in that space, right? Like we know this, our soul knows it, and that just
yeah.
emanates.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for saying that. Like, there's probably a mixture of like all of the above, and then I finally
Mm-hmm.
landed with
Mm-hmm.
it's just not worth it, and it's just
Yeah.
and so like we talk about being in alignment. If you're questioning like, well, how the fuck do I get into alignment? Well, stay tuned and go back and listen to previous episodes, because
Yes.
the only way that you're going to know how Leanne and I knew in our environments that like, okay, this doesn't sit right. This doesn't feel like I am not in alignment. This is not, um, it's not right. I don't know how else to say it. It's just something's not right. Something's
Mm-hmm.
off. If you are not in alignment, you will not catch that your environment is out of alignment. And so you doing the individual work starts first. Like you got to start there first in order to then be able to see the bigger picture in your environment.
Do you think that's because it's just like you're getting it from like all sides of just like I felt like I was the problem. I felt like I couldn't just
Same.
like get it and get
I
on
remember saying to
board.
my therapist, why can't I get my shit together to execute in the way that my team needs me to execute as CEO? And she looked
Ah,
me square in the eyes and she said, what if that's not the question? You're not going to find the answer because what if that's not the question? The question is, are you supposed to even be there? Like not how do I be a fish climbing a tree? I don't know, bitch. You can't. Like you fish don't climb trees. Like stop trying to climb a fucking tree. And language alert. Sorry, I should have said that earlier. Fish don't climb trees. I write that in my book. You are not meant to
yes.
do certain things because that's not what you were created to do. Fish don't climb
Mm-hmm.
trees. Katie, you don't lead massive organizations. I'm cool with that today because I don't judge myself a failure for not being able to climb a tree when I'm a fucking fish. That no longer, and I am
Yes.
in alignment with that like I can look back at that and be like, wow, I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I'm so glad I'm no longer in it. I learned so much, and more power to the people who can step in. But it was that ego driven environment that made me so uncomfortable that was not my
Yes.
truth. And so I had to
Yes.
exit. Exit stage
Yes.
left.
And there
Everyone bow, take a bow. Where like done.
and that's where I was too, right? Where I'm just like, all right, why am I continuously trying to fit in a space where I'm not meant to be? But again, that took a lot of work to see because I tried and I tried and I kept on. We get the accolades and we're like, oh, you're doing so great, da, 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 and all the stuff and the
And
promotions and
the
all of
money it gets better and better. The bigger the ego, the bigger the money.
it.
Make it rain.
And we're going to show you how to continue to make money, even more money, with leading from a different way, leading from your heart, leading from love, right? And this has been true for both Katie and I as we followed our truth.
1,000%.
So, and again, it could be exiting. I work with women who do want to start their own businesses, and they do start their own businesses. And I work with women who want to change shit from the inside out. So they're in corporations, they're in organizations, and like, how do I still make a difference? And how do I align with that vision? And how do, right? So it's not either or. We're not
Right.
saying you have to quit this or anything like that. It's just finding your truth and aligning with that. So I'm so excited to be diving into that with you during the next episode. So make sure you tune in next week as we talk about leading with love. And this is like, oh, like my entire being and purpose for being here is with love and compassion. So I'm super stoked to talk to you about that. And thank you for tuning in. And again, if you find yourself in this place and you are struggling and you don't know which way to go, reach out, let us know. If we're not it for you, we have so many connections of women who have worked in HR and are coaches and want to help you lead from a different way. I have so many connections. I know Katie does too. So please know that there's a way out, there is a way back to yourself. And please let us know. Please let us know so we can connect you with the appropriate people to help you through that space, because we both know how dark it can get when you're in that space, and we don't want you to be there alone. So until next time, we want to thank you for staying tuned and connecting with us. And we are always sending light and love. Be sure to, be the change that you want to see in the world. Shine your light and live your legacy. So until next time. Mwah.